Can I have everybody's attention really quickly? Okay, we're going to get started. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We're excited about everybody being here. I'm excited to hear from our candidates. It's a great turnout. Thank you guys for coming. If you guys don't mind, we're going to say the pledge and a quick word of prayer, and then we're going to jump right in. Turn it over to Tracy. He's going to get started. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Lord, thank you for bringing everybody here tonight. We pray that you would provide an atmosphere of grace in the room tonight. We pray that the things that are spoken, we know there's passionate things that we're going to talk about tonight. And Lord, I pray that every word that's spoken would come from a heart of service. I know that these folks on the stage here who are running all want to serve people. I'm so proud that they're part of our team. Lord, I pray that you would let these questions and these answers go deep to the heart of matters that hit our community. I pray that everything happens here tonight glorify you. In Jesus' name. Amen. Tracy.
Thank you. By way of opening remarks, today is the 80th anniversary of the D-Day landing. And I cannot recommend highly enough the experience of going there yourself, of walking Omaha Beach, Sword Beach, Juneau Beach, Point du Hoc, because only then can you understand the truly epic proportions of what was done that day. Most of us have seen the archival footage of the withering machine gun fire, the German fortifications mounted on high cliff walls, but the landing itself was equally heroic. They built the harbor, built the piers, often under direct fire. They even attempted to pilot tanks, armored tanks, with inflatable skirts as a part of the landing armada. It gives you a true sense of what giants of willpower that generation was. I won't say it demonstrates how far we've fallen, but I will phrase it more as it imparts a clear sense, almost an epiphany, of what we owe them. God bless all who gave and give their lives for this country, and especially on today, God bless those who the Lord used to beat back that evil. Let me make one more additional political aside before we get started. Tony Bostic, and if I call your name, please stand up so everybody can recognize you, is running for the School Board District 1. Dennis Driggers is running for District 3. Margie Johnson for District 5. Angela Beaton for District 7. Claire Reeves for District 9. Tanya Hibma of District 11. This is your moment, Williamson County. There has never been a more qualified group of candidates for school board ever. We have former teachers, former administrators, award winners, people with advanced degrees, military experience, compassionate, common sense conservatives who want to get back to when the school was a place of education and less about indoctrination. Okay? The left is coming for them hard, maligning them, throwing out every wedge issue that can be used. Help your Republican candidates, support them, go to their websites, donate to each and every one of them, because we need to get a good, solid majority in there to help to take advantage of this historic opportunity. Okay, I want to thank the audience for coming. Okay, you're trying to activate yourselves, you're trying to get informed. God bless, okay? Share what you learned tonight. There's going to be recordings of what you hear tonight, okay? So people can go back and watch it at their leisure or rewatch, okay? I want to thank the candidates for coming. They've completed surveys. Those are on our website where they had a little bit more time to answer the questions, so give those a good read, okay? It takes courage to step forward and run like this, and again, we appreciate you all for that. I want to remind you that the deadline for voter registration is July 2nd. If you don't get it in by then, you will not be voting in this race. Early voting dates are July 12th through 27th, and Election Day is August 1st. Okay, let me explain the format for you guys, all right? We're going to ask you questions that will be timed on the screen up there. You're going to be giving opening statements, which will be about 2 minutes each. Then we'll move to short answer rounds, 1 minute each. And then we'll move on to a lightning round, which is that kind of yes or no, really quick, really pithy answers. And then we'll go to closing statements. What I'll do is I'll start maybe alphabetically, move down the row. That gives him a little bit more time to think about it. Then the next round, I'll ask him first. And so as I'm mixing this up, I may well forget to call on one of you. So go, whoa, can I answer that one too? And yes, please do, okay? We also want to ask everybody, please, listen. You may feel moved to cheer, okay? But let's try to keep that to, we want to hear as much as possible from these people, okay? All right. Okay, let's move on. This is the opening statement, and Brian, you'll be first. Briefly summarize your background and why you are running to represent Tennessee State House District 65.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I want to thank the Williamson County Republican Party and Chairman Tracy Miller for hosting this forum and having us come out tonight. My name's Brian Bethard. I am a conservative Republican with a proven track record of results. I have lived in Williamson County for 20 years with my wife. I am a father, a Christian, a husband, a business owner, and I am chair of the Williamson County Commission. In the 14 years that I've been on the commission, we have done a lot of good for this county. I'm exceedingly proud of those I work with and the things that we have accomplished. There are a lot of folks who want to move to Williamson County now, including my two opponents, for the things we've done and created with the best schools in the state of Tennessee, a nationally recognized sheriff's department, a state-of-the-art hospital, great parks, great roads, and all with one of the lowest tax rates in the country, and one of the only counties that has a AAA bond rating. That didn't happen by accident, and I want to take those same skills, those same business-minded ideological principles to the state and help make the state the best state in the country. I love this county. I deeply respect its values and everything that it stands for. I'm proud of what we've done on the county commission in terms of SROs. We were the first county to put an SRO in every school. I'm proud that I'm one of the only county commissioners that's never voted to raise your taxes. And one of the things I hope to accomplish in this forum is to quelch the rumor that's been going around, spread by a couple of people, that I might be a rhino or a Democrat or that I once had an Obama sign in my yard. If you've seen that, I promise you it's not true. I have voted in more Republican primaries than either one of my opponents. I've been a card-carrying member of the state Republican Party since 2010. All three of us are conservatives. My two opponents will tell you they are, and I take them at their word. That's what they're asking you to do. With me, you don't have to take me at my word. I've got a voting record both as a private citizen and as a public citizen, where you can pull my voting record and see for yourself. I think most of the answers tonight will be along the same lines of the same. The only thing I think we might disagree on this evening is vouchers. I look forward to that question and explaining my side of that when that time comes. Thank you again.
Okay, and by the way, we've got the person keeping time over here. So if you do go over an extra 30 seconds, then we will cut the microphones off, and then you'll have to get very loud to say, and that's it.
We don't have any way to put it up.
We don't have any way to do that right now. I can try to give a high sign, okay. Michelle, same question.
Mic on?
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you to the Williamson County Republican Party for putting this event on. You all have worked so hard, and I appreciate all of your effort and what you do, and thank you to Chair Tracy Miller. I really appreciate this. Like I said, I'm Michelle Foreman, and I'm running as a conservative Republican for the State House District 65 seat. I'm running to be a voice and represent my community's values, I thought about running for this seat, and the grassroots, many from the grassroots said, hey, you know what, we really want to be represented. Would you please run? So I'm honored to be able to do that. I grew up in Williamson County. I'm a native Tennessean. My history, my roots go back to 1830, where my ancestors settled here after the Revolutionary War. I'm very proud of that. So we've lived here in and around Williamson County for almost 200 years. I was taken back and forth from the county by my mother to different church schools, both on Arno Road and on Clovercroft Road, because my parents thought it was so important to have a good Christian education. I'm very fortunate. I'm a graduate of Brentwood Academy and David Lipscomb University. I am a registered nurse. I'm a practicing attorney, graduated from the Nashville School of Law. I'm also proud to say that I was elected to the Republican State Executive Committee. I served from 2018 to 2022. And while I served on the State Executive Committee, I was unanimously elected by, well, we've got 66 seats. I was unanimously elected by both conservative Republicans as well as moderate Republicans to chair the first ever permanent elections subcommittee. Now, this subcommittee came about after the 2020 election. And so what we wanted to do is make sure that we had really strong election integrity laws. We had some that were already in play, but we needed to go ahead and strengthen those. I realize that the state of Tennessee is considered top when it comes to voter integrity and security at the polls, but we've got a little work that we need to do. So I finished that term. We made a lot of good resolutions that we sent to the General Assembly, and I've worked very well with them since then. I'm also proud to say that for the second election in a row, you all have honored me with a vote of representing as a Trump delegate to the National Convention. So thank you for that if you voted. That's my time.
All right. Lisa.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Lee Reeves, and well, first of all, I guess I want to thank the Republican Party as well, and also my opponents, by the way. They both served in office. That's something that is hard to do. It takes time away from your own pursuits and from your family. So I appreciate the service that you guys have done. My wife and I, well, let me start at the beginning. I grew up in Bowling Green, Kentucky, just up the road, not too far. I missed Tennessee by 22 miles, but it's really close. Went to Emory University for undergrad, served as college Republican chair there for 2 years. Very liberal school. It is it's even worse now, I think. They get into sweats and melt into a puddle when they see Trump written on a sidewalk. Remember that story? I went to law school at Georgetown University, met my wife, Claire, when I lived in D.C. Moved up to New York. I was a real estate attorney there for 10 years. And we had both of our daughters up there. Libby is now 16 and Dee is 12. And lived there for 10 years. That was never our home, though. We wanted to start our careers, and my wife was pursuing her graduate studies. She's got a whole bunch of degrees. I like to say we've got 7 degrees between us because it ups my average. I have 2. She's got 5. But we moved to Texas for a little while and had our son in Texas. Archer is now 8, and our kids would be with us tonight, but we got a new puppy at home, so they weren't leaving the puppy. But I am running because I want Tennessee to remain the great state that it is for our kids and for maybe our kids' kids, and also for your kids too. We live in a great state. It needs to remain that way. We've got people out there that want to change that for the negative. And it creeps in too. Even Republicans, in government wants to grow, and we've got to make sure that it doesn't, and return influence and authority to parents and to the citizens, and keep government small. So that's why I'm running, and we'll get into the issues. But I appreciate everybody coming here tonight.
Okay. We'll start with our first question, which will be a minute's response time. and we'll start with Michelle for this one. During COVID, we saw an explosion of EOs, or executive orders, at the state and local levels that infringed upon individual constitutional rights. Will you offer legislation to limit the powers of our governor, county executives, to declare states of emergency that infringe on constituent liberties?
I don't think I need a minute for that. I mean, the short answer is just simply yes.
Okay.
I mean, truly, it's just yes. We have constitutional rights for a reason, and so we just need to remind sometimes government officials and entities that they are what they are, and then, just enforce those and make sure the government understands that.
Okay. Lee,
Yeah,
same
repeat
question.
that question one more time.
Yes. During COVID, we saw an explosion of EOs, or executive orders, at the state and local levels that infringed upon individual constitutional rights.
Sure.
Will you offer legislation to limit the powers of our governor, county executives, to declare states of emergency that infringe on constituent liberties?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. Yeah, it is an easy answer. People were dealing with a very difficult period of time that was hard to find a corollary to. And they went way overboard and did infringe on people's rights. I remember actually not getting into this room one night when parents were frustrated about masking of our kids. And I was outside there with my wife with our signs, "Don't mask our kids." So yes, I would be behind something like that.
Okay. Brian?
It was unconstitutional. The masking and especially the closing of businesses went against everything I believe in as an American, our freedoms and our liberties. One of the things I am running on is local control. So to answer the last part of your question, I would leave it up to the local citizenry of each county to decide for themselves. I don't believe in passing these large sweeping bills that affect every county. I actually think it's an old conservative tenet to allow for local control. Local government is closer to the people and therefore more efficient. But as for me and my county, while being a commissioner, and anything I could do as a state representative to prevent that from ever happening again, I would do in earnest.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Democrats in Tennessee, and we'll start with you, Lee, are famous for crossing party lines and voting in our primaries, helping the most liberal or perhaps the most unelectable candidates succeed. Despite their openly admitting to this, no significant legislation with any kind of teeth can make it through our legislature. Will you fight to change this, or is this an inescapable part of politics?
No, it's not inescapable because we don't have that in other states. We've developed that here. And, look, they'll tell you back in 2010 and around that time that we became red because we had an open primary process. That may or may not have been true at the time, but right now we've got people running in Republican elections that would be a Democrat in any other state. And we may have one on the stage tonight. So that is something I would like to do. I'd like to make sure that we can register as the party that we actually are, and make sure that we don't have that kind of crossover voting that can affect our elections.
Okay. Brian?
Absolutely, and it does go both ways. In 2008, Republicans were asked to vote in the Democratic primary to try to sway the election against Hillary. Rule changes, if they're fair, should affect both parties the same way. I think there was a comment there alluding to one of the individuals up here not being a Republican. Again, I'll use the rest of my time here to state that with the rest of these questions, I hope it becomes undeniably clear that we're either all the same, or I might be the more conservative one sitting up here. But again, you don't have to take my word for it. You can pull my record and see how I have voted in the past, both as a public elected official and as a private citizen. So I hope people will take the time to do that instead of believing or maybe feeling like a sly comment is worth taking to heart.
Michelle?
One thing that I did when I was on the state executive committee from 2018 to 2020, we talked about the issues of crossover voting. It's real and it happens across the state of Tennessee. So in 2020, what my subcommittee did, the Permanent Elections Subcommittee, well, actually, let me back up. What we did in 2018 and then again in 2020 is pass resolutions from the State Executive Committee to go to the General Assembly. We want to close the primaries. Again, this is a problem that happens, and it happens openly. Davidson County is notorious, and I pick on them because I'm not going to go local, but it's a way of life. Excuse me. So what we did for the first time ever on the State Executive Committee was pass those resolutions, send them to the General Assembly, close the primaries. And the General Assembly has not done that. We need to continue to push. It is a felony to cross over and vote in another party's primary. And we need to do a better job of educating the electorate. When we don't do that and we even help facilitate it, we're help facilitating voters commit a crime, and we don't want to do that. I mean, no one wants to do that. So let's continue to push this. We need to have closed primaries. We can have partially closed primaries, and that would be up to each state party to determine who votes in their primary if they're an independent. So yes, it's certainly something that we need to continue to push, and we need to get that passed.
The May 10th solar storm was similar to the 1859 Carrington event that destroyed the early electrical grid. In 2022, the state of Tennessee gave $1 billion to Ford in addition to other incentives to move to Tennessee. Should the state prioritize budgets to strengthen critical infrastructure rather than just simply attracting new business? Please explain.
Well, if I understand the question correctly, it's going around the idea of should we give money to private businesses to incentivize them in any way. I would say sometimes if it is good for the county, if there's an ROI that is obvious. As a county commissioner, I think on 4 or 5 occasions we have done these TIF type resolutions. They come with a lot of rules and regulations on the company. And they've been for companies like Tractor Supply, Schneider Electric, Mars, here recently In-N-Out Burger. The good news is I think the county's in a place now where we no longer have to do those. We've built such a special place here where taxes are already low and incentives are already high that I think the competition of the general market when you ask a company to move to a specific area to do specific deeds becomes self-evident to come to Williamson County. We no longer have to offer those incentives. The incentives that we did offer were really smaller than what people think. We do not ever abate taxes that go towards schools. And here in Williamson County, it's now been purported that we spend 71% of our tax dollars on schools. So only 29% is abated. It's only abated for 10 years, and it only stays abated if they follow certain criteria.
Okay. Lee?
Oh, got it. Oh, we're mixing it up. Okay.
Mixing
good.
it up.
All right, good. Yes, I think we should invest in critical infrastructure. I think that's obviously a priority. The balance of the question really is, should we fund private businesses in this state? And I understand the arguments on both sides of that. I think that cities and counties can probably make those decisions. I do not support that, however, at the state level. I don't think that we should be picking one business over another. I believe in competition. I think it's important that that businesses be able to compete that way. And I also think that in Tennessee we have structured a economic situation with an intelligent, educated workforce that companies want to move to and people in those companies want to move to, regardless of the sweeteners that they get with some of these big corporate deals. So no, I would not support these big corporate infrastructure deals like the battery plant or the Titan Stadium.
Okay, Michelle?
Should the state prioritize budgets to strengthen critical infrastructure rather than attracting new business? I don't think Tennessee has a problem attracting new business. We certainly don't have a problem attracting folks to come to our state. We are one of the most desirable states in the country to move to. So in lieu of adding or sweetening the pot for corporations who already have it wonderful here, we've now actually cut out part of the cut out the franchise tax, so that's even more of an incentive for them. So let's use that money that we would well, let me back up. If anyone remembers the Dell project, and I used to work at Dell, we really made it wonderful for Dell to come to Tennessee, and they promised all of these things, jobs included, but then they left prior to the end of their contract. And so Tennesseans, Tennesseans got hurt by that. So again, we're at a point where we don't need to put anything extra towards attracting businesses. We absolutely need our Department of Transportation funded properly so that any of the potholes that you all have hit, like I have, we can make sure that that infrastructure is taken care of. When we build, we don't seem, wow, that minute went fast.
It does. It seems to go fast. Okay. All right. Well, we'll start with you this next round. Okay. Will you champion legislation to establish a depository in Tennessee? Is this an essential piece of legislation in your estimation? Why or why not?
Yeah, it's a good question with a complex set of facts and background and arguments that go with it. I've listened to Catherine Austin Fitts talk about this subject, but it is a very complicated subject. I know she believes in that, and other people do too. For me, I would want to study the issue a little bit more than I've been able to this point. I'm sure that there are some pros and some cons to that, and if yeah, I think I'm going to leave it there, Tracy, because I think there's way more than a minute could unpack.
Okay. Michelle.
I would also say, between listening to Catherine Austin Fitts and others who are experts when it comes to what's happening globally, the state of Tennessee needs to secure itself. Part of securing our borders means establishing our own bank and a bullion depository. To think that globally we would be dictated to and how we would conduct ourselves financially is something that we absolutely must protect ourselves against.
Brian.
Similarly, and I agree, we do need to protect our borders, and we have to absolutely protect the dollar. But this is another issue that I, too, would have to study further to give a more in-depth answer.
Okay. Let's start with you on the next question, Brian. The state of Tennessee currently spends $10 billion a year on K through 12 public schools that have failed many students. Would you support solutions to fix the public schools before any taxpayer-funded programs are recommended?
Well, in Williamson County, our schools are our oceanfront property. They are the economic driver that supports not only the county, but in turn supports the state. I have often been surprised, not just with our schools, but with our sheriff's department and all the other accolades that we have, which came, by the way, through ubiquitous conservative ideology over decades. Why the state Republican Party and even the National Republican Party doesn't shine a spotlight on us. And instead of trying to fix what we have, or maybe try to fix Memphis, and in doing so cast a large net that might have unintended consequences to other counties, namely Williamson County, why not shine a spotlight on us and see what we've done right, how we've done it, and prove once and for all to the country that when you have ubiquitous conservative ideological principles factored into every decision for decades, you end up with a county like Williamson County that is a bit of a unicorn in terms of having both great schools and low taxes.
Lee?
Yeah, I think you didn't come right out and talk about educational scholarships, but I think that may be what the question is getting at. And yeah, I think that the standard solution is to throw money at a problem, and we've seen over time that does not work and it doesn't get results. We don't get return on that value for education. Money is important, of course. But it's not the only answer. And so the governor is in support of a educational scholarship. And so am I, because I believe in competition. I think that it makes things better. And there are studies that prove that education actually gets better in a competitive environment as well. Now, here in Williamson County, we do have great schools. And but that's just not the case in everywhere in Tennessee, or for every student for that matter. So I support educational scholarships. I received the Governor Bill Lee's endorsement this morning because of that, and I would pursue that policy at the state level.
Okay.
Was this?
Yeah, we ran out of time, and so the mic cut off.
The clock is stuck.
I can't get it.
Okay.
I knew it wasn't 50 the whole time.
All right. Okay. Well, again, we'll try to go back to the enigmatic high sign. Michelle, would you please answer the same question?
Sure. Could I have that question back on the screen? I'm
Yes.
sorry.
No.
Yes, when it comes to the issues with our public schools, there are some counties that struggle more than others, and there are some schools within the counties that struggle more than others. So we need to look at the state as a whole. That's what the question is. And when we have circumstances where we can fix, we need to do that first. We can use taxpayer-funded programs. But one of the problems with that is that government regulations follow those tax dollars. And so when we're moving a child into a private school or maybe even homeschooling, we need to remember that the regulations are also going to follow. But when you're moving a percentage of children out of failing schools, it doesn't remedy the problem, which is the failing school. There's a laundry list of issues that need to be addressed, but we need to go to the root of the problem and deal with those statewide.
Okay, here comes the monster question. All right, so it's multi-part, so this is exciting. Currently, yes, I know. Currently, Williamson County is contributing 71% of the annual funding for education, the highest of any county in the state, while multiple counties contribute as little as 11 to 30% of its total funding for education. The Williamson County Commission just passed a resolution objecting to the calculation of the county's portion of the state education funding through the Tennessee Investment in Students Achievement, TISA Act. Here's the two parts. As our state representative, what will you do to make the distribution of the TISA funds more equitable for Williamson County? And number two, would you champion legislation to give school budget oversight and accountability to local legislative bodies like the County Commission, including a line item veto? We will start with Lee.
Okay, that's a lot to get.
I know, it's a huge one. Okay.
Well, first of all, yes. So the county commission did pass a resolution. The commissioner decided to push that, and it passed on a 22-1 vote. Some of the things that were contended were not correct, and this came out in the news the other day. Tennessee Firefly posted the actual numbers. Our budget, actually, we're getting more from the state under the TISA formula than the basic education formula that we were before. Those are just the numbers. But to the heart of the question, should Williamson County get more than it's getting? And I think the answer is yes. And the only way to get that done at the state level is to make a logical argument with data and have the relationships in the legislature to do that. And that's how any bill gets done. You make the argument and you have the relationships. I've already started forming those relationships, and I can put together a logical argument. That's, my background as an attorney helps in that. Would you champion legislation to give school budget oversight and accountability to local legislative bodies like the County Commission, including line item veto? I'd have to look a little closer at what they're able to do now in terms of a line item veto. I'm not really sure actually what you're getting out of the question, so I'll hold off on that.
Well, thank you for being the first to tackle that monster question. Brian, you want to give it a crack?
Absolutely. This is actually a central theme of my campaign. To whom much is given, much is expected, but there is a point where you're taken advantage of. There are 3 counties in our state that provide most of the funding for the state. I actually am not only supportive of this, I have an idea for what would be my first bill. Those 3 counties that I spoke of pay more than double what they get back. And I understand that when you're up there, Getting things done as a Williamson County citizen can be kind of tough. They believe our sidewalks are paved in gold. But I think I can appeal to their conservative sensibilities and say, let's have a bill that at least states that no county will pay more than double what it gets back. Each year would be a little different, but we have looked at some years where we would get $200 million back if that bill was in place, or that law was in place now. With $200 million back, we could do a lot of things. We could help build our own infrastructure, widen our own roads, pay for our schools, and pay our debt down. The state of Tennessee is balancing its budget on the backs of Williamson County, and if I'm elected, I'm going to put a stop to it.
Michelle?
I do believe that when you have to make the argument to get more of the funds back, you must have established relationships with legislators. And I've developed those relationships over the years and have many that are solid. They're very well established. Making the argument that we need more of that money coming back simply means explaining we're not all uber wealthy. We're middle class, and we have a segment of our county that is living below the poverty line. And when you can explain that to a legislator who may live in a rural county, then it begins to make more sense. So it's developing and having those interpersonal relationships that they trust you, so that when you give them this information, they believe you. And then as far as championing legislation, making things accountable at the local level, we need to remember that taxpayers are left potentially holding the bag, and they're responsible to close any funding gap. So what I would like to do, like my opponents, is look into that a little bit more, because I would like the taxpayer to be the ultimate overseer of where this money is going, and for the accountability to lie with them.
Okay. All right, next question, and we'll start down with Brian. Would you support the removal of state funding for DEI-type programs in higher education, as it's been done in states such as North Carolina, Florida, and Texas?
Explain DEI-type programs.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yes, I would.
Okay, Michelle?
There's absolutely no doubt about it. Yes.
Lee?
Yeah, without a hesitation, I would get rid of DEI programs both in K through 12 and in higher education in the state of Tennessee. Now, my authentic conservative on the end doesn't know what DEI is, so I'm going to explain that. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's not equitable, right? It's actually, these are programs that pursue woke ideologies and push that into our kids and into our businesses, and that's something that we've struggled with over the last number of years. So yes, it's got to go.
Okay, and I would like to ask that we kind of keep our comments to the audience, because I don't want to get into a situation where we need to give someone else time to respond.
Sure.
But would you like a quick response, Brian?
And I will make it quick. I am horrible with acronyms. I always have been. It's a fault of mine that my wife gets tickled over all the time. If it had been spelled out, I wouldn't have had to ask. The answer is absolutely yes, as it has been for my colleagues here on the stage.
Oh, the question was written EOs, and I had to write in my notes executive orders,
Yeah.
because I was like, EOs. Okay. All right, the next question. Everybody got to answer that one, correct? Okay. We'll start with you, Lee. In response to concerns from parents, Representative Gino Bolso filed a lawsuit against the Williamson County Board of Education for its alleged failure to comply with the Age-Appropriate Materials Act of 2022. The lawsuit is set for trial in August. In your view, do we have a problem in the Williamson County schools with obscene materials in our public schools?
That's a great question. I've been told to talk into the mic a little bit. It's a shame that our school board needed a lawsuit in order to formulate a policy around appropriate materials that was mandated by state law. They should formulate that policy. Do we have some obscene materials? Yes, I've seen some instances of that, and we need to have a policy in how to deal with that. We have a rating system for movies, And I think we should have a system to deal with materials in the library and in the curriculum as well.
Michelle?
Well, first of all, I want to thank Representative Gino Bulso, who's in the audience tonight. Thank you for having the courage for filing this lawsuit. Thank you. I've seen some of the material. I won't go into detail. And the short answer is yes, we do have a problem. And it's not just Williamson County. It's across the state of Tennessee, and it's across the country. We do have a problem. It is being addressed, and I fully support that.
Brian?
We do have some material. I've seen it, and it is a problem, and we need to handle that. Personally, I would have taken a different tact than suing our schools. I'm not big on lawsuits. I think conversations and meetings with your county commissioners and your school board could get this resolved. I think we all are conservatives on the commission. We all have common sense. If it's shown to us, we will extract it from that library immediately. What the lawsuit does now is holds this thing up in perpetuity. It costs the taxpayers money on both ends. For a state representative to sue their own school district needs to be an anomaly at best. And again, I think there would have been a more tactful way of doing this, but in the end, I do agree that if there's any obscene materials in our school, either in the library or in the curriculum at all, it needs to be removed immediately.
Okay. Next question, we'll start with Michelle. Due to the weaponization of Biden's DOJ, we have seen the targeting of citizens here in Tennessee for their religious political beliefs with the prosecution of pro-life citizens. Would you support legislation that requires all terrorism cases to be investigated with the cooperation of our elected county sheriff and chief of police?
I need more than a minute. Again, the short answer is yes. What we've seen is weaponization, not just from the Department of Justice, but many federal departments and actually local divisions, not here specifically in Williamson County, but this is a problem straight across the board. Supporting legislation that requires these cases to be investigated, that's absolute. Again, because there's such, we live in a point in time where things are so politically polarized that we've got to have those systems of checks and balances in place, especially in situations like this.
Brian?
The weaponization of our judicial system is very problematic. So again, the short answer is yes.
Lee?
Yeah, I'm also a yes. You know, we have the need in Tennessee in many different ways to push back and exercise our 10th Amendment, push back against the federal government and all the things that they're doing to overreach into our state. So yes.
Okay. Almost should have been a short answer question. I get that. I mean, our lightning round. Okay, next question, and we'll start with you, Lee. Do you support the government's efforts to suppress free speech using terms such as mis, dis, or malinformation? Please explain your answer.
Well, this might be the easiest one of the night. Yeah, no, we can't suppress free speech. I mean, that's so fundamental to who we are as Americans and Tennesseans. So, yes, of course not.
Michelle.
I believe that's one of the bedrock constitutional freedoms that we have, and to suppress it in any form other than defamation, it is our right to speak what we want to speak, whether we agree with it or not. Again, that's a right that we have, and we have to protect it.
Brian.
It definitely is a bedrock, fundamental discipline of democracy, and I concur wholeheartedly with my colleagues here on the stage.
Okay. Next question. One of the most controversial bills enacted into law this year was HB 1202, which allows local school districts and local law enforcement agencies under certain circumstances to allow faculty and staff to carry concealed weapons in public K through 12. How would you have voted on this legislation? Brian?
I would have voted yes. I am running with Sam Whitson's endorsement, and I understand that he voted no on this. And I am running to keep the seat Sam-esque. My meaning there is the honesty and integrity that he brought to that seat, which was woefully needed at the time. But that doesn't mean we agree all the time. This bill, which did pass, was passed, I believe, and I don't believe, I know, with local control. And I'm a huge, huge proponent of local control. And what that means is for some of our rural counties that don't have a police force, maybe have 3 deputies in the entire county that live and work 30 minutes away from the elementary school that your child goes to, if the sheriff, the superintendent, and the school principal all agree that this individual makes the school safer by having and keeping safely locked away a weapon, then I'm not going to stand in front of them or behind them and stop them. I'm a huge supporter of the Second Amendment, and I would have voted yes for this legislation.
Lee?
Sure. Yeah, I'm a yes on the legislation as well. And I think there's kind of been a fundamental misunderstanding by some on this bill. This was never arming Miss Daisy. It never was. This was about giving a tool to probably rural counties where usually, and I would assume a former military or former law enforcement officer who went into the teaching field would probably be interested in this. And it was never something that teachers were going to be forced to do. They could opt into it, and there were multiple levels of checks on that. And so, yes, I would have absolutely been a yes on that to give school districts that additional deterrent.
Michelle?
I would have voted yes as well. Again, this was a controversial bill because it was a misunderstood bill. It was never the government of the state mandating that LEAs enforce this. It was giving them the opportunity to decide what was best for them. For those of us who grew up in Williamson County, you know that there were teachers and coaches that would go out hunting with their students. They were very well adept. They could handle a firearm. They knew. For those that don't fall into that category, it was never something to try and make them do this. So again, I think it was a misunderstood bill. It was a very good bill. And yes, would have voted yes on it.
Okay. Next question, and we'll start with you, Michelle. There is an increasing concern regarding the purity of the ballot due to the possibility of non-citizens voting in our elections. There are some actions that can be taken at the state level to protect the integrity of the process and protect a non-citizen from breaking the law. Would you support some of these actions, such as increased communication at the polls, such as signs, etc., to remind voters that they must be a U.S. citizen, training poll workers to check current voter ID that indicates citizenship status, to advise non-citizens of the state and federal laws, and ensuring that all forms of voter ID accepted at the polls include citizen status?
Yes, and that's a lot of information up there.
It is.
I can say that we have problems with people voting that should not be voting, and you all may have recently seen that the state is prosecuting 11 people for voting. They're convicted felons, and they were able to go in and vote. So we have a problem in the system. It's not an easy answer. It's not an easy fix, but it is something that we absolutely must do. Illegal aliens can and do get driver's license. They do vote. That's a fact. So what we need to do is figure out a system. As far as talking about the poll workers, that's going to be a hard one as well. So I think having that communication there at the polls, making sure that it's mandatory at the polls, explaining the felony and the repercussions for committing that felony, those are just ways to start. And to uphold that purity of the ballot box, we do have to start somewhere. I think that's a good place.
Brian?
Voter integrity is critical to our democracy. So to those last 3 bullets, yes, yes, and yes. We have to make sure that only U.S. citizens are voting, that they're only voting once, and they have a photo ID. One thing I'm proud of is that the state of Tennessee was just ranked #1 in voter integrity by the Heritage Foundation. If you've lived here long enough, you'd have to be here a long time. In the 40s and 50s, Tennessee was ranked in last place. And there's books written about that called the Hopewell ballots. It was a time when it was so rife with corruption that elected officials wouldn't even try to cover it up. They would say openly, I'm going to win because I've got more people filling out fake ballots than my opponent. We've come a long way since then. We've got a system that works as a triad, and those that I've talked to that are in the business of stopping hackers or in the business themselves of doing the hacking have told us that if they tried to do that in Williamson County, the juice just would not be worth the squeeze. That they would not be able to affect the vote very much. And I guess my microphone went off.
Okay. Lee?
Yeah, we have a constitutional republic whose integrity depends on making sure our elections are free and fair and tabulated correctly. Yes to number one, increased communication. I'm wondering on point number two, why we have a voter ID at all for non-citizens. But yeah, we need to make sure that we check ID at the polls, and I would certainly support making sure that we talk to non-citizens to remind them that they cannot be there voting.
Okay. Now, I've totally lost the order of who should get the first next question. So we'll just kind of go back to the beginning and start with Brian, okay? Tennessee election processes are currently controlled by a centralized bureaucracy that has no direct accountability to county governments. Would you support legislation that would require local election officials to be elected in the county where they serve versus appointments by the state bureaucracy?
Yes.
Awesome. Michelle?
Yes.
Awesome. Lee?
I'm a yes on that too.
Okay, well, that made that one very quick. We'll start with you, Lee. Good audits require accurate artifacts. Would you support legislation such as that passed this year in Georgia that promotes security features on paper ballots similar to our absentee ballots, machines that tabulate the human readable text, not barcodes or QR codes, and public access to the ballot post-election under the supervision of officials? Wow, I mangled that. Sorry about that.
Well, I hope I don't mangle it too. Yeah, so yes and no on some of these. Security features on paper ballots, absolutely. There's, zero issue making those more secure. Machines that tabulate the human readable text is something that I think can introduce error, and so I would want to look at that. I'd want to study that a little bit more. I think that in Williamson County, we have a barcode, but also a printout of all of the votes that we've taken, and we can have a human verification of those things, and we can go back and audit what we've got already. Public access to the ballots post-election under the supervision of officials, yeah, I don't see any reason that we shouldn't do that.
Okay. Michelle?
So as far as security features on paper ballots, we do have those on some, and yes, I do think it needs to be made, it needs to be mandatory on all of them. Again, well, it says it right there in the absentee ballots. When it comes to machines that tabulate, we need to remember that barcodes and QR codes are the proprietary property of those that own the election machines, not the voter. So that's a problem right there. We do, I believe, need to go back to our hand-marked paper ballots. It's not a difficult procedure, regardless of what the opposition may say. And we're talking about the purity of the ballot box. That's it in a nutshell. Free and fair elections depend on that bedrock. Public access to the ballots post-election, absolutely. For every single time a voter wants to verify their vote or an election outcome, absolutely.
Brian?
Anything that makes our elections more secure, I'm going to support.
Okay. All right. We will start with Michelle for this question. House rules allow the recording of member votes only on demand. Senate rules require a permanent record of each vote cast. Would you advocate for the recording of all House votes?
Yes.
Lee?
Well, not having been in the House, I haven't seen the flow of things, and I think some things by voice vote may make sense, but yeah, I'm generally in favor of creating recording of the votes. Absolutely.
Brian?
Robert's Rule of Order has carried us through for a long time. So absolutely yes, I believe in transparency, and I would be in support of a roll call vote versus a voice vote.
Okay. Next question, start with you, Lee. If you could be known for, this is a good one signature piece of legislation, what would it be?
It's a great question. I'll tell you what my first piece of legislation would be, and it would be to demagnetize our state to illegal border crossers by creating a new criminal statute to make entry into the state by somebody here illegally, first a misdemeanor, and upon additional violations, a felony. I think it's important. Oklahoma just passed a similar law. Texas just passed a similar law. And I think we can do that here and become the last place somebody who crosses that border illegally wants to go.
Thank you. Brian, what would your signature piece of legislation be?
Well, I've already mentioned the first one that I would like to do, which would give Williamson County back more of its fair share. Beyond that, I would support legislation that would give us term limits at the state level.
Michelle.
One signature piece of legislation that I would like to be known for is refusing federal dollars for education. We have explored that. The state of Tennessee can afford that, and we need to do that.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to move to the lightning round. Again, these questions will kind of ask down the row, and it's a yes, no, one-word answer ideally. Okay, and we'll just go from Lee down, then we'll go from Brian back, and we'll just kind of alternate that way, okay? Question number one, would you vote for any legislation that supports closed primaries?
Yes.
Yes.
I would have to consider it more.
Okay. Question number two, and we'll start with you, Brian. Can a man become a woman and vice versa?
No.
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 Okay. Number three, Lee, we'll start with you. Would you support legislation even if it might bring a federal lawsuit?
Any legislation might bring a federal lawsuit. The job of the this is
hey,
a one
it's the
answer
lightning
thing. It's
round.
like
Yeah.
one thing. Oh my gosh, I've been so in the mode. Yes.
Yes.
Case by case for me.
Okay. Brian, would you support allowing counties to place property tax increases on a referendum for voters?
I would. We did that. I know it's a one-answer
Yes.
question. We've done that for sales tax.
Michelle?
Yes.
Lee?
I'll be better this time. Yes.
Okay. Well, we'll start with you again, Lee. Will you accept or have you accepted campaign money contributions from builders, developers, or any group that might stand to make financial gains?
I don't know.
Okay. Michelle?
No.
Brian?
No.
Okay. Number 6. Brian, we'll start with you. Do you support the motto of the USA, E pluribus unum?
You're going to have to tell me what that means.
Out of many, one.
Yes.
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 Okay. And last of the lightning round, we'll start with you, Lee. Is there any place for political, ideological, or religious flags in the classroom?
Absolutely not.
Michelle?
No.
Brian?
No.
Okay. All right, now we're going to do your closing statements, and we'll again return to the alphabetical order that we started with. So, Brian, you have 2 minutes.
All right. Well, again, thank you to the Williamson County Republican Party for having us, and thank you again, Tracy Miller, for hosting this, and thank all of you for coming out. This, to me, is the forum, the one that matters the most. It's where Republicans get together and we discuss the differences between each other ideologically. I would ask you to consider if you like where you live, and if you do, I promise you I'll take those same principles to the state to make our state the best state in the nation. Williamson County has done a lot of things right. We're not perfect. No human is perfect, therefore no institution is perfect. But we've done enough right that people are wanting to move here from all over. We do need to start managing growth, and we do need to start managing the money that we get back from the state. We can't keep getting taken advantage of by the state and keep being the goose that lays the golden egg. If you vote for me, I have ideas and plans to try to get more of our money back and stop the redistribution of our tax dollars to other parts of the state of Tennessee. It's not fair, and it's starting to hurt our schools and our pocketbooks. We need to protect this special jewel that we've created. And if you send me to the state capitol, I'll protect it every day that I'm there. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Michelle.
I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. I want to thank my family for always being so supportive. It's a rough process to go through what we go through, so thank you. And thank you to the party for putting this forum on. I really appreciate, again, all of the time and the effort that you all put into this. It's not a paid job, so thank you. And thank you, Chairman Miller. As the hometown girl growing up here, there is a special place in my heart for Williamson County. And while we've seen changes that may or may not reflect what we want to see, I can promise you that you are the ones who put the person in the office, and it is your voice that is to be heard at the Cordell Hull building and at the state capitol. That does not happen, and we need to get back to that. I say it doesn't happen in many, many instances, thus the frustration. So this is an opportunity to put your voice up at Cordell Hull and up at the capitol, and know that if there's ever a question about a bill, there is no rubber stamping. Those questions come to you as the voter, and the answers come from you as the voter to me to take that forward. So know that that is my commitment to you. And if I don't know you, I want to know you. And if you have any questions of me, I'll be around. Please ask me. Please let me know what your thoughts and concerns are. I want to serve you.
Lee.
Okay, well, I'll also thank everybody for showing up tonight. Thank you for joining us online as well. Thank you to the party for hosting this forum. I am an authentic, principled conservative, and I have been my entire life. I've been invested in this community as involvement with the Lions Club. I'm the current president of that organization. I sit on the Board of Zoning Appeals for Franklin. I am invested, and I think you have to be invested in the community that you want to represent. I think you have to know the community, and I think you have to have an understanding of the issues that resonate in that community as well. My top priorities are to help demagnetize the state of Tennessee because every state right now is a border state. We have things to work on in education, both in curriculum and in parent choice. And we've got to bring more money back to Williamson County for roads and infrastructure. I hope that I can earn your vote and your support. Thank you so much.
Real quick before we thank them for being brave and all stepping forward to run, I do, and if I'm wrong to do this, let me know. Grab signs and take them home with you and put them out in your yard, whatever candidate hey, maybe 2 or 3 of them, I don't know. But, get behind them, support. We have materials up here at the front desk. Thank you all. Thank the 3 of you for coming here tonight and sharing your vision.